Here is a Sharp model RT-350 stereo cassette deck. Three notable facts about this cassette deck. Number one, this was the top-of-the-line cassette deck by Sharp for the years 1983 and 1984. Number two, this was the first Autoreverse cassette deck Sharp ever made. And not only that, this is actually a quick reverse cassette deck, meaning the output on playback is constantly monitored, and if a longer section of silence occurs, the autoreverse is triggered before the cassette has reached the end. And number three, this marks a peak in cassette decks by Sharp, as in 1985 most single cassette decks with full logic mechanism, including this one, were discontinued and replaced with dual cassette decks with a much more primitive soft touch mechanism. So these 3 points justify documenting how this cassette deck looks and works. So let's turn this on and put in a cassette. Press play. This cassette was recorded using this cassette deck, so this is the quality that you can expect from this. Now, this doesn't sound bad, but there is a notable difference between the source and the tape. But don't forget, Sharp, aside from some experiments, was never a high-end audio manufacturer. So let's go and take a closer look. I have to say, this has to be the most unintuitive cassette deck I've ever seen. As we zoom in at the front, there is a power button, eject button, there is a cassette door, nice big Autoreverse logo on there. We have the counter and a headphone jack. And then we have this long row of square momentary push buttons. Very uniform, very unintuitive. Really the only button where you can instantly tell what it does is the record button because it's red. All the other buttons, if you can't read the label, there is no way of telling what they are good for. So let's go from right to left. We have an intro scan during playback and auto spacing during record. Next to that we have the pause button with an indicator light above. Fast forward, stop, play, rewind. This cassette deck does have APSS, which stands for Automatic Program Search System. So if you press fast forward or rewind while playback is activated, it switches to APSS and starts looking for one of the breaks in the audio that you've previously recorded using the auto spacing function. Next along we have the record button with an indicator light, repeat, single program, auto reverse on or off. Oops. That was unexpected. Up above we have indicator lights for Dolby B and C and the automatic tape selector, normal, chrome or metal. Interestingly, it seems like they didn't have any space left over for some more uniform square momentary push buttons, so the Dolby switches are these traditional switches down there. Next to those we have the microphone inputs and the record level. Some nice sliders for those. Now, this cassette deck unfortunately does have several things wrong with it. The problem you've probably all expected. It does have bad belts, and you've just seen how much of a struggle it was for the deck to switch into the reverse direction. In fact, I'm quite surprised that it managed to successfully switch to reverse and then back to the forward direction. The problem that is the most annoying is a really strange one. An oscillation randomly occurs on playback. Basically, the right channel, the audio goes away and you just have a motorboating sound. I have no idea what's causing that. So yeah, unfortunately Sharp cassette decks are mostly worthless, so I'm not going to repair this. I have already put some work into this just to be able to show it to you. Here is the back of the cassette deck. As we zoom in, we have the mains input over there and the voltage selector. This label lists all the voltages that this deck will run on. Sharp Corporation, made in Japan. And then over here we have the audio side. On the left we have the line inputs and outputs, and on the right we have the DIN jack. And in the center we have two switches. One is the input selector switch, either line or DIN, and the microphone inputs are somehow coupled to the DIN inputs. So if you want to use the microphone inputs on the front, you have to flip the switch on the back. That makes sense. And we have a manual tape select. This is a compatibility feature, so you can even use the very first metal cassettes in this deck that did not yet have the indicator holes for automatic tape selectors. Here is the inside of the cassette deck. This does look very much like your typical mid-1980s, middle-of-the-line cassette deck. Nothing special. Fairly big circuit board. Power supplies over there. This is the microcontroller for the full logic mechanism. Some op-amps up there. There is the bias oscillator, some more op-amps. There are the Dolby circuits right there. Right there is the voltage selector next to a little transformer that's mounted to the back of the cassette deck. Power switch up there only switches the secondary side of the transformer, so it's not a real power switch. And then the mechanism is okay. I can't see anything wrong with it. Decent motor, it looks like, and some decent sized flywheels as well. So there you have it, the Sharp stereo cassette deck model RT-350 from around 1983. Thank you for watching.